The tallest trees in the world are redwoods, which tower above the ground in California. These trees can easily reach heights of 300 feet. Among the redwoods, a tree named Hyperion tops them all. Standing at 380 feet, Hyperion also shares its name with the Titan god of heavenly light. Coming in second for the world's tallest trees is Helios, standing at 374 feet. And for the bronze medal, we have another redwood called Icarus at 371 feet high. Interesting names. Now, the widest tree that we know of is called El Árbol del Tule in Santa Maria del Tule, Mexico. This tree has a circumference of 164 feet and it dwarfs the town church by a large amount. The largest tree by volume and not height or circumference is a sequoia called General Sherman, 275 feet tall with a circumference of nearly 103 feet. Now, these are just some of the world's tallest trees that are standing today. Needless to say, the sizes of some of Earth's remaining trees are absolutely mind-blowing, and the thing is, they used to be much bigger. Here's an article about an Australian mountain ash from 1872. The tallest tree ever measured was not a sequoia, but a type of eucalyptus, an Australian hardwood tree. In 1872, forester William Ferguson spotted an extremely tall mountain ash near the Watts River, Victoria, Australia. Purportedly, he was 132.6 meters, or 435 feet tall. Around that time, multiple specimens of 140 meters tall were reported in Victoria, mainland Australia. We cannot check these measurements anymore. All these trees have been logged. Mountain ash was and is an important construction material in Australia. This brings me to my next point. Do the trees of the world get bigger and bigger the further we go back in history? We have some records of men cutting down extremely large trees in mass quantities. If trees of this magnitude were cut down by men in the 18 and early 1900s, then that begs the question, have we cut down even bigger trees before that? We don't know. But we do know that men love mindlessly taking out trees like there's no tomorrow. Was there once a time when trees were unimaginable in size and they reached high up into the heavens? Maybe this is true.
The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth.
Here the Bible says tree, and I think this is referring only to the world tree, also known as the tree of life, located at the center of the world, and that would be the North Pole. In depictions of the Norse cosmology, the tree of life, Yggdrasil, is growing from the center of a mountain. Here's a passage from the book of Enoch, kinda talking about that.
And from there I went to the middle of the earth, and saw a blessed, well-watered place, which had branches which remained alive, and sprouted from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain, to the east of it, there was water, and it flowed towards the south. And in the midst of the trees, that of life, in that place whereon the Lord rests, when he goes up into paradise, and this tree is of ineffable goodness and fragrance, and adorned more than every existing thing, and on all sides it is in form gold-looking, and vermilion and fire lichen covers all, and it has produced from all fruits. Its root is in the garden at the earth's end.
End is Eden. Mythologies from all over the earth plane reference a tree or sometimes a mountain there instead. Sometimes both at once, as we have just seen with the depiction of Yggdrasil. Maybe humongous trees used to be the norm. We are told that natural landmarks like the Devil's Tower are made by lava cooling in that shape, and that the lava dries up into neat little hexagonal columns. But when you look into how basalt columns are formed, you will not be able to watch how they are formed. Instead, we are told to just believe that basalt columns are the result of lava cooling down and cracking into hexagonal columns on its own. But when we look at how lava actually works, it never dries like that. It oozes chaotically before cooling down and drying in a random manner. It's merely circumstantial. No one has ever witnessed basalt columns form, therefore the official explanation is very much up for debate. So is the Devil's Tower an ancient tree stump? Are there more of these kind of structures? The answer is yes. Everything that we have ever been taught is up for debate, being that we've been taught mostly lies when it comes to where we come from, who we are, what our purpose is, and where we live. Our true history has been changed, rearranged, rewritten, and hidden from us. This video is a joint effort between myself, ODD, Rosette, and two awesome gentlemen named Shaddy and Cracker. We hope to bring forth food for thought, intriguing ideas, and even new information for those that have already been researching this topic, including recently uncovered Freemasonic books from Lebanon that seem to support all this. So with all that said, I'll pass it off to Rosette. Be sure to subscribe to her channel as well.
Thanks, ODD. Being awake is not all bad. Yes, it's scary at first knowing our government is not our friend, that the world really is run by psychopaths who follow Lucifer. But there is a good side to this knowing too, and that is connecting with like-kind people who want to help change the world for the better. People like ODD, Cracker, and now our new friend Shadi. He has a passion for getting the truth out and has a special perspective he wanted to share. It is regarding his homeland of Lebanon and the giant cedars. In getting to know Shadi, I discovered that his first name is Arabic for singer, which reminds me of Jacob in Jacob's Ladder. His name was Jacob Singer. Jacob was a Christ character in that movie. Singer as in messenger. And I can't help to make the connection to our friend ODD, literally being a singer of truth, with his raps exposing the Baal lie and everything else regarding the New World Order. Makes you think, do we truly pick our names? Or are we given our names? Birth names or pseudonyms, it doesn't matter. The name has a resonance that fits that person, and they are that name. And yes, like Jacob here, exposing 9/11, Shadi and ODD are here to also expose the ones behind 9/11. Notice Jacob sees with his right eye. He is of the right, of the good. Now we can't do a series called Ancient Tree Research Project without discussing the giant cedars of Lebanon. This is the one place on earth that is known for its giant trees. These same giant trees come up in the Bible in 47 verses. Why? What is so special about these trees? Are they hiding some more truths in plain sight? Let's take a look at some of the evidence. Now let's locate Lebanon geographically so we get a feel for the land. Lebanon is nestled between Israel on its southern border, and Syria on both its north and east. And just over the waters of the Mediterranean is its closest western neighbor, the island nation of Cyprus.
Notice Cyprus, the neighboring island country to Lebanon, could indicate cypress as in the tree, and cypress has fragrant wood just as a cedar tree does. This is a picture of an ancient cypress tree. Cedar trees are part of the cypress family of conifers or pines, also indicating a connection to the pineal gland. Could cypress actually be an ancient giant cypress stump that is sticking up out of the water as an island?
Speaking of Cyprus, Cyprus is visible with the naked eye on a clear day from the highest point in Lebanon, which is called El Aras. It peaks at 3,083 meters above sea level. These mountains get covered in snow during the winter time, except for a place called Arnet Solda. This is said to be a special place where Noah planted a special seed right after the flood.
Remember also that Lebanon is part of the ancient land of Canaan, known as the Promised Land in the Bible. Canaan consisted of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Israel, and was also known as Phoenicia. Now, Lebanon has a unique flag. There is a giant cedar on the Lebanese flag. A giant cedar of life. Cedar, C-E-D-A-R, is phonetically the same as cedar, S-E-E-D-E-R. And what is the giant cedar of life? The tree of life. Is this giant cedar symbolic of the tree of life in the center of our world? Does this imply a connection to the tree at the center with the giant cedars of Lebanon? I would say absolutely. And the tree is green. Green is the color of the heart chakra, Anahata. And the heart is in the center of our chest, just like the tree of life is in the center of our world. So the green tree is the heart.
The green chakra could also represent Baalbek, which translates to in your heart. Baalbek is a town north of Lebanon, just behind the Aras. It is famous for its giant structure known as the Temple of Jupiter. The cornerstones of the earlier temple have been found to weigh over 100 tons, and the retaining wall monoliths weigh about 300 to 900 tons each. These blocks and the others are known today as the Baalbek stones, and have been the subject of much debate, study, and conjecture over how they were moved and arranged. Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek in 334 BCE. He named it Heliopolis, as in the city of the sun. The name still in use in 64 BCE when Pompey the Great annexed the region of Phoenicia for Rome. This was still the designation for the city in 15 BCE, when the city became a colony of the Roman Empire. Alexander the Great was a giant, so was Pompey, which is how they got great in their name.
And the Masons call their New World Order project their great work, their giant work. And remember, George Bush Sr. went by Magog, the giant, at Skull and Bones. And hear from his son, straight from the horse's mouth, Gog and Magog are at work in the Middle East. The biblical prophecies are being fulfilled. This confrontation is willed by God, who wants to use this conflict to erase his people's enemies before a new age begins. But the God that George Bush is talking about there is Lucifer. Right? That's his God. Back to the flag, it is on a white background. Now, what's interesting is that when looking up the etymology for Lebanon, we find that it originates from the Phoenician root Leban, which means white. So Lebanon is implied in the coding. The white background means Lebanon. Remember also Noah's white dove, a symbol for peace. The white is flanked by 2 bars of red. Red is the color representing Christ. Christ is red-blooded, as are we. The ones against Christ, the Antichrist, are blue, blue-blooded, like the blue bloods, the royal elite. Blue is the color of the Star of David on the Israeli flag, and we know the Star of David is an occultic symbol consisting of 2 triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. Each triangle has 3 sides, so 3 and 3 is 33, the number of the Masons. And we know the Masons worship Lucifer. So if the Israeli flag is a Masonic flag and the Masons worship Lucifer, what does that tell us about Israel? And 2 bars of red to show the heaven and earth connection, like we have in Norse mythology, with Asgard, the garden above or heaven, and Midgard, the middle garden or earth. The only 2 realms with gardens. The only 2 realms with the red connection. The 2 realms with the red connection. Earth, which is an anagram for heart, and heaven, an anagram for E-Haven or Earth Haven, the sanctuary above. The giant cedars are mentioned 47 times in the Bible. That's an awful lot of times. Now we know these trees were giant by particular passages in the Bible. In Ezekiel 31:3 we read, "Behold, Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon with beautiful branches and forest shade, and very high, and its top was among the clouds." The cedars were among the clouds. They have to be pretty tall to be that high. In Psalms 80:10 it states, "The mountains were covered with its shadow, and the cedars of God with its boughs." So the cedars were taller and bigger than the mountains. They shadowed the mountains. Giant cedars, S-E-E-D-E-R-S. And notice what kind of man is associated with these majestic trees. In Psalms 92:12 we read, "The righteous man will flourish like the palm tree. He will grow like a cedar in Lebanon." Remember, Jesus was God's right-hand man, of the right, of good, of God. And how does a cedar grow? Tall and strong, bigger than the mountains, reaching among the clouds. Tall and strong, like Shadi's grandpa, who stood almost 8 feet tall. And so was his brother. Very hard-working men who worked with fruit trees their whole lives down in Quinnabine. The men of Lebanon take after the trees, tall men. Tall men as opposed to giant men. There is a difference between a man, seed of Adam, who grew tall and strong, and the Nephilim, whose offspring were of enormous size. In Deuteronomy 3:11 it states that King Og's bedstead was 9 cubits in length and 4 cubits in width, which is 13.5 feet by 6 feet, according to the standard cubit of a man. So King Og was approximately 13 feet tall if his bed was just a little more than that. And at 13 feet would make him over twice as tall as what is generally considered a tall man at 6 feet. In addition, the Book of Giants, which was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, was also called the Lost Book of King Og of Bashan. So 6 feet and 8 feet, like Shadi's grandpa, would be considered tall men, while King Og at 13 feet was a giant. So it's on the flag, it's in the Bible. Where else can we find the giant cedars? How about in the landscape?
The big mountain is called Al-Araz, which means the cedar in Arabic. It is the landscape and part of everyday life in the oldest Maramite Christian towns and villages which surround the mountain. The valley, or Al-Wadi An-Nubin, is Arabic for the Valley of the Holy Saints, or the Holy Valley. The mountains and the valleys provide excellent climate for growing the most beautiful fruit and vegetables, from apples and olives to pears and cherries. Now, why would a civilization dating centuries ago name a mountain after a tree? It wouldn't make sense unless the mountain was a tree, a giant tree that has been cut down. This cut portion starts at 1800 meters above sea level, which would be equivalent of a 60-story building. And that is just at the base. Notice how this cut portion is already among the clouds, as mentioned in and throughout Ezekiel. The mountain is also home to pine tree forests and cedar tree forests, which is called Az al-Rab, which translates to the cedars of God.
And observe how the mountain looks separate from the floor. El Arez isn't a continuous mound of rock and dirt that slopes to the ground. Instead, El Arez extends downwards like you see on tree roots at the base of a tree. This also has a flat top, or mesa. Mesa meaning table. Table of the giants? In nature, with erosion from wind and rain, you would not get a level top like a tabletop. You would get an irregular and rough pattern where rock becomes loose and gives way. So a flat top implies some form of cutting or sawing. The coloration is also similar to a tree trunk and can be distinguished from the plain below.
This is a view from above. Notice how clear, clean and blue the sky is. Notice how flat and level it is. These photos are from my village in Hasrun. Hasrun is a Phoenician term for fortress, and the town truly is a fortress because we are the oldest Christian village in all of Lebanon, and we have defended ourselves from invaders for 6,000 years. The Phoenicians invented the alphabet and were known as kings of the sea. They dominated travel as they used cedar trees to craft boats and ships. This was because the cedar tree could survive the snowy winters and the salty summers. This tree was durable to the salty oceans all over the world. They traveled to Egypt and Africa, down to the Mediterranean, and even all the way to Australia. They were experts in trade and maintained peace with many different cultures. The Phoenicians were known as the Purple People to other cultures. In the Wadi An-Nubin, or the Valley of the Holy Saints, you can see the caves that the Christians hid in during the invasion of the Ottoman Empire. We have monasteries here that were built in the 1600s, so over 400 years ago. My uncles have worked in them and have first-hand knowledge of giant bones being discovered in them years ago, until the church came and took them away. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like whenever they discover giant bones in the US, a team from the Smithsonian Group comes by and hauls them away, never to be seen by the public again. Smithsonian. Smith is code for Mason. Both the church and the Smithsonians are hoarders of true knowledge of our world, sharing the same allegiance. Let's take a look inside the monastery of Addisha. Upon entering the monastery, I immediately get goosebumps. This monastery is home to many saints, hermits and monks from all over the world. Ancient paintings, writings and drawings are well preserved here. Weekly masses still take place in the church here today. This is a black slab from the roof of the cave. It has a painting on it, which looks familiar. Does it remind you of anything? To me, it looks like the beginning of the seed, like cedar, seed of life symbol. It also looks like the cross-section of a pomegranate fruit. Could this be where they got the real Star of David from? From the bottom of a ripe pomegranate fruit? And here is the actual tomb where the giant bones were found. Notice the tiny and only entrance. This was so that he could defend himself from trespassers. In the valley of Addisha, my grandparents and ancestors used to grow fruit and vegetables for 60 plus years before establishing a home in Hasron. The valley is called Adisha, and in Arabic Catholic Mass we sing this as an opening hymn, and I am pretty sure it originated from this monastery. This is the day's harvest from my farm in the Wede, fruits of thy labor in Andobir. Can you see how the veins in the leaves are like the lines on our skin, like on my hand here?
Now what's interesting too is the similarity between words that we have in the area. For example, a town across from Hasrun is called Eden, E-H-D-E-N, which phonetically is the same as Eden, E-D-E-N, as in the Garden of Eden. Now, although it appears from the brilliant research of the God culture in studying the Book of Jubilees that the garden is in the land of Ophir, which is modern-day Philippines, the connection is still as profound as the giant cedar is to the tree of life. And in the same general area, Ophir shows up on the map as well. Please check out the God Cultures channel on YouTube for more information on this. I'll leave a link below. Now we have another phonetically similar word in Kadisha. Kadisha, K-A-D-I-S-H-A, which is very close to Kadash, K-A-D-O-S-H, as in night Kadash, the 30th degree in Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. The term Kadash is derived from the Hebrew word which means holy or consecrated. So night Kadash would be holy night. They consider the night holy, where Lucifer reigns. Knights Templar for Templars of the Night as well. Night Kadash's abbreviation is KK. KK in numerology is 22. 22 is the number of Christ, of his journey here on earth, usurped by the Luciferians, making Christ Lucifer in the tarot. The Masons follow the Gnostic writings of the Kabbalah. Night Kadash, Night Kabbalah.
Just a note here, Kadash sounds like it might be related to the Kardashians or the Kardashians. KK, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, the KKs. This is probably why these vile creatures are pushed into the news every day as a symbol for the KK. The Kardashians are likely candidates to be transsexual and androgynous, like the Freemasons' coveted Baphogoat.
Khloe, Kim, Courtney, or KKK. 11 plus 11 plus 11 equals 33. And we can't help but notice that KKK are the initials of the Ku Klux Klan, founded by Albert Pike, the head Mason and writer of Morals and Dogma. From the chapter of Night Kadash, the ghosts of the dead Templars haunt the Vatican and disturb the slumbers of the paralyzed papacy, which, dreading the dead, shriek out its excommunications and impotent anathemas against the living. It is a declaration of war and was needed to arouse apathy and inertness to action. It at length became a menace for the church and society when a rich and dissolute order, initiated in the mysterious doctrines of the Kabbalah, seems disposed to turn against legitimate authority, the conservative principle of hierarchy, and threaten the entire world with an immense revolution. The Templars, whose history is so imperfectly known, were those terrible conspirators. This rebuilding, formerly predicted by the Judaizing mystics of earlier ages, had become the secret dream of the patriarchs of the Orient. The Temple of Solomon, rebuilt and consecrated to the Catholic worship, would become in effect, the metropolis of the universe. The East would prevail over the West, and the patriarchs of Constantinople would possess themselves of the papal power. Trumpets. And notice they're both wearing blue ties. Blue ties for Israel. Blue is the color of Lucifer. And they make sure to have the Christmas tree that looks like a cedar on Trump's right. Behind Trump, it looks like a mountain landscape with little cedars peeking over his left shoulder. On the left behind Pence, we have the flag in a pyramid shape. The stars are laying sideways, so they have the appearance of pentagrams with the 2 points at the top of each. And it's topped by an eagle or phoenix, symbol of the Masons. It's kind of like their version of the tree behind Pence. Man-made as opposed to God-made.
Another random thought about pagan Christmas is that it is centered around trees and decorating them in materialistic rubbish, while hiding the true essence of trees and the true nature, power, and purpose of them in our world. The Christmas tree with the star on top, or the Northern Star, is a representation of our old world. The decorations are meant to be the fruit, and the gifts under the tree are meant to be the blessings of life, to provide food and shelter for all life on earth. The trees don't grow fruit for itself to consume. Every single aspect of a tree, from the roots to the bark, to the vines and the leaves, and right down to the fruit, all hold deep, sacred and special healing powers for the human body and the entire environment that the tree is surrounded in.
I totally agree. Many say it's a pagan symbol and make it bad, but it was usurped and made that way. Originally, it was a symbol of our blessings. However, one thing people should be aware of, we should use live trees, trees with their roots intact, not cut trees. Cut trees represent the giant trees that they cut. So by having cut trees in our homes at Christmas has us unwittingly giving our blessings to this horrid act. Live trees, trees that we should plant after Christmas, add beautiful trees to our plain instead of subtracting them from it. Like the forest of Lebanon, which only covers 13% of the land in present day.
There are 41 mentions of trees in the Book of Enoch. Here's one of the more fascinating ones. This is from the Book of Enoch, chapter 32. And after these fragrant odors, as I looked towards the north over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of choice nard and fragrant trees, and cinnamon and pepper. And thence I went over the summits of all the mountains far towards the east of the earth, and passed above the Erythraean Sea and went far from it, and passed over the angel Zotiel, and I came to the garden of righteousness. And from afar off, trees were numerous. These trees and great 2 trees were there, very great, beautiful, and glorious, and magnificent, and the tree of knowledge, whose holy fruit they eat, and know great wisdom. That tree is in height like the fir, and its leaves are like those of the carob tree, and its fruit is like the clusters of the vine, very beautiful, and the fragrance of the tree penetrates afar. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree, and how attractive is its look? Then Raphael, the holy angel, who was with me, answered me and said, this is the tree of wisdom, of which thy father and old in years, and thy aged mother, who were before thee, have eaten, and they learnt wisdom, and their eyes were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven out of the garden.
Notice how similar the tree looks to the tower card in the tarot deck, at the bottom of which looks like a tree. Notice the base is among the clouds, just like El Arez looks like this base and is among the clouds. With Trump still in mind, look at the next picture. It's Trump Tower. Trump Tower is the Tower of Babel, replacing the Tree of Life. Man-made tower as opposed to cedars, S-E-E-D-E-R-S, God's towers. Let's continue with the Kadash quote. Sword and trowel, the Templars' insignia, concealed themselves as brethren masons. The trowel of the Templars is quadruple, and the triangular plates of it are arranged in the form of a cross, making the Kabbalistic pentacle known by the name of the Cross of the East. Thus, the Order of the Knights of the Temple was at its very origin devoted to the cause of opposition to the tiara of Rome and the crown of kings, and the apostate of Kabbalistic Gnosticism was vested in its chiefs. So the Cross of the East is a symbol of Kabbalistic Gnosticism. Notice Crowley's Cross of the East to his right. And what is written next to it? Baphomet. Remember that word, it will come up again shortly. And here, with the sovereign commander of the Masons with his Cross of the East on his fez. Notice the tint of this photo? It is purple, Phoenician purple. We continue. To acquire influence and wealth, then to intrigue, and at need to fight, to establish the Johannite or Gnostic and Kabbalistic dogma, were the object and means proposed to the initiated brethren. The papacy and the rival monarchies, they said to them, all sold and bought in these days, became corrupt, and tomorrow, perhaps, will destroy each other. All that will become the heritage of the temple. The world will soon come to us for its sovereigns and pontiffs. We shall constitute the equilibrium of the universe and be rulers over the masters of the world. Did you catch that? And they will be rulers over the masters of the world. The Templars, like all other secret orders and associations, had two doctrines, one concealed and reserved for the masters, which was Johannism, the other public, which was Roman Catholic. Thus, they deceived the adversaries whom they sought to supplant. Hence, Freemasonry, vulgarly imagined to have begun with the Dionysian architects or the German stoneworkers, adopted St. John the Evangelist as one of its patrons, associating with him in order not to arouse the suspicions of Rome, St. John the Baptist, and thus covertly proclaiming itself the child of the Kabbalah and Essenism together. And wherever in the higher degrees the two colors, white and black, are in juxtaposition, the two principles of Zoroastrian manes are alluded to. It is absurd to suppose that men in intellect adored a monstrous idol called Baphomet, or recognized Mahomet as an inspired prophet. The symbols of the wise always become the idols of the ignorant multitude. Remember Crowley's Baphomet? And we see how the Cross of the East represents Kabbalistic Gnosticism. And we see here also how the Masons covertly worship John the Baptist and try to associate him with the Kabbalah and Essenism. Here is a Masonic-inspired version of John the Baptist, with him doing the as above, so below. Notice 1 foot up, 1 foot down, sitting on a throne with the scepter in his hand, and naked except for a cloth draped over his privates, just like in this next picture, which looks eerily similar to the statue of Mason George Washington doing the same pose and dressed the same way, which looks eerily similar to their Baphomet doing the same pose and dressed the same way. So we can see just from the one painting of John the Baptist that they are usurping him, using him to promote Gnosticism. Remember, this is from Night Kadash, straight from Morals and Dogma, straight from the Mason's own writings. And Donald Trump is a Mason. I'll leave a link to his appearance on the Jimmy Fallon show, where he has to go through his humiliation ritual to move up in Freemasonry. And you'll notice he holds up his thumbs and index fingers, forming 2 L's. L in numerology is 3, so holding 2 up, he is making the 33 of Masonry. So they tell us they worship John the Baptist, and what's interesting is that John the Baptist lived in Qumran. In further reading in Night Kadash, the legend of Osiris was revised and adopted to symbolize the destruction of the order and the resurrection of Kurum, slain in the body of the temple of Kurum Abba, the master as the martyr, or fidelity of obligation of truth and consequence, prophesied the restoration to life of the buried association. So they associate Kurum with Osiris, and we notice how phonetically similar Qumran is to Kurum. We are in the land of the Phoenicians, no less. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in caves in Qumran. The Essenes did not live in Qumran. They lived above En-Gedi on the southwest shore of the Dead Sea, with 5 villages in between. There were no Gnostic texts found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Essenes were Gnostics, as we just read straight from the Masons' writings. They were not even mentioned in the Bible. The Gnostic texts were found in Alexandria, Egypt, nowhere near Qumran. And notice how similar the place where the scrolls were found are to a modern-day cedar tree's base.